Hello and welcome to Starscape. My name is John Dunn and today's project is working with plasterboard. However, finishing the plasterboard with a traditional skim is very difficult indeed, if not impossible. So we're going to use taper edge boards to make the job a bit easier. So we're going to fill sand and paint the taper edge joint and see how the fibres react to this process. So that's the project. So let's get on with it. I'll just describe the components that we're going to work with. We've got two small plasterboard panels here, fibre optics already inserted. The fibre optics come together into the panel tail. This is the panel tail. Optical joint. These are the feeder tails or carrier tails from the light source. So the carrier tail plugs into the light source. That's the optical joint. The optical joint plugs into the panel tail and carries light to the fibres. It's as simple as that. Okay, we'll get the boards onto the wall now. We're going to put them onto the wall rather than the ceiling just for ease of filming, and then we'll resume. Welcome back, it's the next morning. The plaster's dried overnight and so we're ready to sand down. However, some of the fibres are protruding too much. They're protruding by about 2 to 3 millimeters. And what we need to do is cut them off virtually flush, because the sanding process will snap the fibres. And if it snaps it well under the level of the plaster, we're going to lose the fibres. So we're going to snip off the fibres virtually. The clippers won't get them flush, but virtually flush. And we'll sand down. I'm going to use a sanding block and 180 grade paper. And just don some PPE. And we'll sand away. So far so good. I think all of the fibres have survived the sanding process and haven't snapped off under the surface. So we'll get another coat of plaster on and see what that does to the fibres. Right, that's not bad. So we'll let that dry and then resume when it does. Once again, an overnight dry. So we're ready for the second sand. So that's the second sand, and it looks as though we've still got all the star points. That's looking good. We've actually got a couple of little indents, so we could give it a third coat of plaster, but most of the joint's pretty perfect. So I think we'll just get some paint onto it now and see what happens. Okay, we're ready to paint. This is white emulsion on a bit of a blue roller, but I'm sure it'll be okay. These fibres are sticking out 2 or 3 mil, but I'm sure the roller won't affect those fibres. But we're going to see what happens to the fibres when we paint over them. So here we go. Luckily for us, the paint doesn't like sticking to the plastic fibres. So as you can see, we're being quite successful in just painting straight over them. Alright, that's the first coat. It's a bare plasterboard, it's getting sucked in, but it's not bad, it's not a bad coat. So we'll let that dry, we'll put a fan on it to assist it, and see if we can get a second coat on this afternoon. Right, back after it dries. So the paint's dried overnight. I was hoping to get a coat on yesterday, but it wasn't to be. Now we're losing a little bit of light from the fibres. I don't know whether we can see in this light. Let's just turn some of the lights off. So there's a couple of the fibres here looking a little bit dimmer, but we're not going to worry about that. I'm sure we'll be able to bring them back up. So we'll get another coat of paint on and see how it looks. You see I'm painting straight over the protruding fibres. So I'll move the camera in a little while just to show you that the roller's having no effect on the fibre. In fact, we'll do that now. So I hope you could see in the close-up that the roller wasn't damaging the fibres at all. Well, I think you might struggle with a paint pad. I mean, the brush would be fine, but a bit slow. So I think the roller's the way to go. That looks okay. It's going to need another couple, I think. So the fibres are a little bit dimmer, but we can still see them. So we'll let that dry and come back. So the paint's dry. There's 1 or 2 blemishes. When I bring the camera a bit closer, you'll see those. But I'm no plasterer or painter, so I'm not going to worry about it. It was all about the fibres, not the finish. If you get a professional decorator to do this, or you're a good DIYer, then you'll do a better job than me. I'll just turn one of the lights off so we can see the fibres a bit better. I'll just have a look at the camera so you can see them. We've lost a little bit of light in the fibres in the joint, but it doesn't look bad, and there are plenty of dim stars in the night sky, so you can either not worry about it, or if you are worried about it, we can see what we can do. I'm just using a sharp tool. I'm using a little tester screwdriver, or you could use something like a Stanley knife or a craft knife, and just pick the paint off the end of the fibre well. So we've got the brightness back. So I'll just show you something else. We'll bring the camera in a bit closer. So we've zoomed the camera into a couple of fibres here. This one's about 3 millimeters and this one's 2 millimeters. And as you can see, well, I hope you can see, there's a glow, a backlit glow around the fibres. Now some people like that effect, but if you want a sharper star point, then trim the fibres back flush to the ceiling. So I hope you can see the difference. Very sharp pinpricks of light, and as we demonstrated previously, I mean, painting over these fibres in the future shouldn't be a problem. If you want to freshen the ceiling up, if you want to freshen the paint up, you could just then pick the paint off the fibres. Or if you don't mind the glow, then leave the fibres at a couple of millimeters, and then repainting is not a problem at all. So we'll trim back the rest of the fibres. Aha, I hear you say. What about the square edges of the board without the taper? Well, I hadn't forgotten. Actually I had, and had to set the camera up again. But these fibres are treated a little differently. Cut them to 0.5 of a millimeter before you plaster. Plaster, sand, plaster and sand, and paint as we have done. And the fibres should come up just like this. You're going to have to pick these ones out, but they should be fine. So there we are. I think the job's finished. We've demonstrated you can join plasterboard panels and still retain stars in the seam. Talking about stars, if you're drilling your own panels, do some clusters and leave some gaps. It just makes for a much nicer star field. The team are here to help for anything fibre optic. So why not give Peter, John, David or Martin a call, or if you prefer, email info@starscape.co.uk. The information should be around here somewhere. I'm John Dunn, this is Starscape Star Ceilings. Thanks for watching and hope to see you next time. And there's one last thing that I must tell you that's going to save you loads of money. Oh no, we're out of film.